me about it. Come on, let's talk about it. Change up the things you see. Open your mind to possibilities. Find your power, passion, and your purpose. You know it's time for you to walk in greatness. Let's murder mediocrity. Slay your goals, live out your dreams. Right now, inspirational perspective.
Over the past 2 decades, I've always had this curiosity about productivity. Like, am I being as effective as I possibly can be? And not only am I being effective, but am I being efficient in the right places? And I don't believe in total efficiency. I think sometimes efficiency can cut down on effectiveness. But in the places where I can't be efficient, am I being efficient? And I've also always asked myself the question, even before becoming a coach, around what makes a person optimally productive in their respective fields. Productive meaning no matter what it is that you do, that you're absolutely doing it at your best, that you're bringing the totality of what can be brought, that you're in many ways poking at the potential of how you spend your time. And I really want you to think about it that way. I've read countless books on productivity that cover, how to better organize your to-do list, to tips all the way up to top-tier time management. And I believe that many of these books have been ineffective for the general population. And I believe they've been ineffective for one major reason. And I don't know about you, but I know many of us, we'll see an opportunity in our work. We'll see an opportunity in how we show up. And so we look for these clues or even these cues in terms of how can I really take it to the next level? What's getting in my way? And having done that, I've always found that there's a main element missing, a main element. And in my early 20s, I would read these books, take my notes, organize myself around these tips, and always feel like, man, why am I coming up short? Like, why am I coming up short? Why is it that whatever this quote unquote productivity book told me doesn't seem to work for me? And that's what I want to talk about today, because I believe that most of these different platforms and vehicles of information have been missing one main component. And that component is the component that I want to talk about today. And it's very simple. There is no health link. There is no link to you and how you actually function. And so when you think about books on productivity, I want you to think about books on productivity like this, because if they don't cover health, this is basically how the book is going. The book is teaching you, like you take a book about a car. The book is teaching you all the things about the car, how to open the doors and close the windows and lock the glove box, all these different things. The book is teaching you all these different things, but it's not telling you the most important piece, because maybe there's an assumption that you already know that every car needs oil and every car needs gas. And depending on what type of oil you put in the engine and what type of gas that you fuel the car with, the car may or may not go. And if it does go, it may not perform to its optimal capability. So what good is a manual on the car if that's not considered and if that's not what they're educating you about? And in many ways, that is what I found with most productivity videos, most productivity resources, most productivity books. No different than telling me all about the car, all the different things that I can do with the car, but not in any way informing me on how I can use better oil and better fuel. And in this case, when we talk about us as human beings, better health. Better health. So, how is it then that in a world that requires so much of us, in a world that requires that we show up our best self almost every day so that we can stay ahead of the game, that there's no information about the link, the major link between health and productivity? Well, this is your link. Now, here's the deal, real quick, because I really want you to understand where I'm coming from with this, and understand what caused me to kind of come with this particular topic for today. So I've had thousands. Actually, last time I added it up, over 3,000 hours of coaching, and so I've thousands of hours coaching high performance human beings, and based on that, one of the links that I've seen over and over and over again in my clients' lives is this link between them becoming their most productive selves and how it connects to them becoming their healthiest self. And so right now, I'm making the assertion is that if you are not at your healthiest state of being, right, if you're not pushing in that top percentile for yourself. I'm not talking about against everybody else, okay? But for yourself, then if you're not at your healthiest self, then you cannot also be your most productive self. It's impossible. And today, you'll understand why. What I want to do is I want to cover 6 major categories of health and discuss how they directly link to your levels of focus and productivity. One of the questions I get all the time via email, especially if I talk about focus on the show, or just randomly from different listeners, is, Linal, I struggle with focus. How can I improve my focus? And in the past, I've written back and I provided different tips. Most of them are more so mental cognitive tips. But I can promise you, after doing the research for today's show, that when I write back, there are a couple of areas that I'm just going to ask the person to look in. No more tips. I'm just going to say, how's your sleep? Are you hydrated? Do you take deep breaths? Or at any point, do you breathe deeply? How's your diet? What kind of toll do you put on your digestive system? Do you exercise? And how much medicine do you take? And then if you're really looking for a bonus, how would you measure your level of personal self-discipline? So today is going to be a very practical show. As a matter of fact, like if you're really interested in productivity, you want to listen all the way through, because I'm going to give solid, when I tell you solid tips that can change how productive you are, immediately I'm going to give them. Let's talk about why. So here's the first one. And I believe this particular piece right here, when it comes to sleep, is it has legs, man. It impacts us exponentially. But when you're tired, you typically compensate by eating more calories for energy. Let me say it again. When you're tired, you will typically compensate by eating more calories for energy. And the tough part about this, right, this is the first thing around sleep. The tough part about this is most of the food that we consume when we're tired does not support a healthy brain and does not support your ability to focus and be productive. You say, well, Linal, coffee does exactly that. No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. We'll dive into why. Coffee is a dehydrator. So whatever perk you feel for the first 30 to 45 minutes, you are going to pay in the next 2 to 3 hours. You're going to pay. All right, same thing with sugary foods. Blood sugar goes up. The brain is, let's say it's sleepy, so it's a little glucose starved. And so you eat a couple of cookies, right? All of a sudden you feel this perk. Why do you feel this perk? Because, well, the prefrontal cortex needs glucose to function. And so all of a sudden it gets a glucose rush. We're not going to even talk about the fructose, right? The fructose that's in whatever you ate that hits your liver. We'll talk about that later, right? But it's split, right? The glucose goes to the blood, filtered out by the blood, goes to the brain. You feel an increase in energy. The fructose goes into the blood. That hits the liver. We'll talk about what happens to that in a little bit. And you feel good for 45 minutes. Then your blood sugar drops. And all of a sudden, the same drag you felt comes back on you. So what do? Either one, you have more coffee or you eat more cookies. And so how does that impact you over time? See, some of us we've been in many ways fueling ourselves for the crash. And so, Linal, I've been productive. I don't have any productivity issues. And what's wrong with cookies if it gets you working? Okay, how long can you do that? At one point, will that impact your body to the point where it's irreparable? Here's the other thing. The later you stay up, the more food you eat. So again, going back to food, we're going to cover diet in detail. But for the ladies, because, I don't know if the gentlemen really necessarily care, right? But for the ladies, the later you stay awake, the less sleep you get, the more susceptible you are to premature aging. So lack of sleep also causes aging. So we're not even, just think about productivity is one piece, but then there's all these other things. A lack of sleep causes a foggy brain and fatigue. And then typically these two symptoms, right, foggy brain and fatigue, are linked to stress. And so now your lack of sleep is causing stress. So not only is your productivity impacted, but also there are multiple negative consequences that are ongoing as a result of your inability or your lack of discipline, whatever it is that is causing you not to get enough rest. Lastly, sleep is linked to a healthy immune system. And so there's nothing that can kill your productivity like sickness. Number two, in terms of the link between health and productivity, first and foremost, if you want to be productive at an optimal level, then sleep is number one. Number two is hydration. Now, I don't even have to ask to know that most of you all are dehydrated. You might say, well, Linal, how do you know? Well, because on average, 75% of all Americans are dehydrated. Let me tell you one of the major reasons why most Americans are dehydrated is because instead of starting their day with water, they start their day with coffee. Now, let's just kind of break this down real quick. Because I get why people say I start the day with coffee. It gets me going, makes me feel better. It feels like it gets me completely generated, my brain going, all these different things. And coffee has that temporal impact. But it has another impact on the body that nobody's talking about. And I think this is one of the reasons why when you think about coffee, you talk about coffee, you do research on coffee, it's almost like every other year there's a study of some sort that comes out and says, oh, man, coffee is the best thing that you can possibly do. Coffee drinkers, they are benefiting from all these different things, and they list them out, right? And I read these articles, and I go, that's interesting. And then the next year, something to come out and say, put down your coffee, put down your cup. And here are the reasons, and then it'll list out all the reasons why you should put down the cup. Then you have to ask yourself, well, what's right, what's wrong? And maybe both are. But more than anything, I want us to understand what coffee does to the brain. Because in many ways, coffee rewires the brain and makes you completely dependent. If you look at caffeine itself, caffeine is in the top 5 most addictive drugs on the planet. Just happens to be legal. It just happens to be legal. In parts of Africa, coffee or coffee beans and caffeine is used as a pesticide. Now think about that. So something to rear off insects and kill insects that we ingest first thing every day. And by the way, if you're a coffee drinker, I'm not trying to get on you. What's most important is that we also know that coffee is a dehydrator. So let's just look at this from a practical matter, okay? So what happens when we're asleep? When we're asleep, the body goes into repair mode. And it begins to repair cells that need repairing and work on different parts of the body. This is why sleep is so incredibly important, because during sleep is when we regenerate. It's when, for instance, my son, who is 4 years old, is not just regenerating, but he's also growing. And so all these things are happening while we sleep. The brain is going through its different cycles. And as it does that, the blood is moving through the body. Again, remember, the body is made up of 70% of the human body is made up of water. And so the water in the body and the blood and the organs is moving around. And what's happening is, as you're fasting, as you sleep, waste is being removed. Oxygen is being taken to different parts of the body. And all these different things are happening while we're asleep. As a matter of fact, we're all adults. When you wake up, typically you will notice that your urine is likely the darkest in the morning than it is all day. That is if you're healthy, right? If you're not healthy, it may get darker during the day, especially if all you're drinking is coffee. But typically our urine is darkest in the morning. Why? Because the body has been removing waste. It has been removing old dead cells. It's been removing all these different things. And so when you wake up, that is when your body is most water depleted. That is when you are likely the most dehydrated. And so you tell me, if when you wake up is when you're the most dehydrated, should you be putting a dehydrator in your body or hydrating your body? You tell me. Like, that's the question. So should you be starting your day with coffee if the body is already dehydrated and trying to remove waste? Or should you be starting your day with water? You tell me. Now, just in case for some reason there's some debate about this, let me just give you the answer. 100%, you want to make sure that you're starting with water. You want to make sure you're starting with water. Why? Because if the body's been removing waste, and that waste creates toxins, and that toxins ruins my brain function, and by the way, if it sits around, can begin to ruin my cells and cause things like cancer, then maybe, just maybe, I want to start my day with water so I can flush all the bad stuff out. So again, majority of Americans are, let's go through it, sleep deprived. The majority of Americans are dehydrated, and the majority of Americans are overweight. Which means then the majority of Americans are not hitting their productivity potential. It's that simple. Which I don't understand why we can't pick up a book and read that. But it's just not in books. So, what's the real impact of dehydration? And we're not going to even talk about like hardcore dehydration, but let's just say mild dehydration. Well, mild dehydration can occur when there's just a regular fluid loss, right? So let's take you use the bathroom and take a bowel movement before going to bed. You take a hot shower. Then you lose more water in the hot shower because there's perspiration of some sort. Then you get in sleep, and then again you go to sleep. While you sleep, most of us lose some level of water as well from the body flushing itself out, regenerating itself, and from perspiration while we sleep. And then we wake up, and either one, we don't drink water or we drink a sugary substance, juice, or we drink coffee. And so here's what happens. Here are the adverse effects of that type of behavior. Number one, the inability to focus on your task. That's number one on the list, number one. But then number two, lightheadedness, dizzy spells. We've seen it all the time. People are like, ooh, oh my goodness, what's going on? And don't be religious, because then they'll say, ooh, I just pray for me. No, drink some water. No, why you telling me to pray? Drink some water. Drink some water. That's in abundance in the United States of America. The other thing is headaches. Folks around here suffering from headaches, and all they got to do is consume more water. Muscle weakness, fatigue, and feelings of lethargy. And this is what happens just simply when we don't drink enough water. And here's the thing. Here's the thing. We're just at the top two on productivity. Sleep and hydration. Which is one of the reasons I want to have the conversation, because these are things that we know. But it's not, I honestly believe they're things that we're not practicing. And so dehydration can lead to deficits in cognitive function. So, wonder why you're not thinking straight lately? Maybe you're dehydrated. Here's the other thing. Because often people are like, well, I can't remember things like that. Or how do you remember that? Oh my God, I can't remember much of anything. Well, you can't remember much of anything because you're dehydrated, and mild dehydration has been found to affect short-term memory, alertness, concentration, and subsequently impair your performance. So if you're wondering why, I should have proofread that one more time, but I did proofread it 3 times. How did I miss it? You may have missed it simply because you're fatigued from a lack of rest and dehydrated from a lack of water. Real general. We'll start the first hour this way. We'll go deeper in a second. I just feel like it's needed, man. So now you have impaired performance, which means your visual motor tracking is off, your perceptual discrimination is off, your arithmetic ability, just your ability to count, is off, and your psychomotor skills are off. All of which are incredibly important. This is how a grown adult could be walking down the street and miss the curb, fall down, break an ankle, and be out for 6 weeks. And most of us go, ooh, that's unfortunate. Was there ice on the ground? No, I just missed it. But it's likely you impacted your life that way simply because you were fatigued and dehydrated. I hate to say it, but many of us are walking time bombs, man, because we're not taking good care of ourselves. Number 3, if you want to increase your productivity, notice I haven't given you any to-do list tricks, any focus tricks. All of these things are about taking care of your temple, taking care of your body. And all of a sudden, you can see an increase in your ability. And by the way, let's go ahead and equate productivity to money and wealth. Some of us are broke simply because we're tired and dehydrated. Let's just think about that. Sleep is free and water is free. You might say, last time I bought some water, Linal, it was $5. Well, you should have went to the fountain. But at the end of the day, both of these things come free. And if you get an adequate amount of it, that could equate to your financial independence. Like some of us are broke simply because we're walking in a cloud. So let's talk about number 3 real quick. Number 3, get this, is breathing. Like, well, Lynn, I'm breathing right now. Not really. Because most people do not breathe properly. In fact, most of us only use 1/3 of our breathing capacity. And poor breathing results in an oxygen-starved body. All right, so let's break this down real quick. Most of us only use 1/3 of our breathing capacity. Most of us aren't taking deep breaths. This is like, we haven't even got to exercise. And I'm trying to put this in the order that we should do it in, right? Because some of us, we jump all the way to the end. I'm going to transform my diet. No, just go to bed and drink water. That's it. That's all you need to do. Stop it. Stop it. Just go to bed and drink water. You don't even have the mental fortitude and clarity to go transform your diet right now. Just go to sleep and drink water. And then after that, start breathing. So what do you mean by breathing? There's a gentleman named Wim Hof. Wim Hof has become an expert on breathing and can teach you how to breathe in ways that help you defy viruses, help you defy outside elements like cold. Like, literally teaches people, like, if you breathe properly, you can warm your body to the point where you can be in cold weather. But if you know how to breathe, you can warm the body to the extent where you can last just a little longer outside. So many things that are simple that we just don't know because we don't have the knowledge. But most of us are taking shallow breaths. Sometimes we go to sleep. And this is how you know, because think about how good a deep breath feels. Somebody says, but we only take deep breaths when we're sighing. Somebody says something we don't like. No, you can't have that day off. Because you need some kind of feel good. But what if you were taking deep breaths like that all the time? Despite when you're disappointed, even when you feel good. I mean, take a deep breath right now. Just see how good you feel and what that does to your body. Even the clarity that it starts to put into your mind, into your brain, simply because you just took in more oxygen than you normally do. Deep breathing exercises reduce stress. There's an app on my phone, typically hits my watch 2 times a day. Middle of the day, it'll say stop for a breathing exercise. And here's the thing, it only takes, I do 1 minute. It's 1 minute, I set it, and I go in and out. Just based on what it does on the watch, right? In and out. And afterwards, brand new levels of clarity. And by the way, that's after having had my exercise that day, where I burnt maybe 400 or 500 calories, ran, 3 or 4 miles on the basketball court. And so the blood is flowing, oxygen is in the body, higher levels of productivity. It's that simple. And then lastly, deep breathing exercises increase your energy levels and focus. You don't believe me? Go ahead and Google Wim Hof, Wimhof. German gentleman who has become a breathing expert around the world and has done, I follow him simply because this is fascinating and it works, but is teaching people how to breathe properly. And what's crazy is we go to school for so many years and nobody really, maybe in the first few grades, right? Maybe there's a high school teacher that was different from the rest that said, young man, you need to get more rest. But I don't know that they necessarily linked it to your overall productivity, maybe because you were going to sleep. But what if we learned the impact of this early on? Sleep, hydration, breathing. Again, all of which are free. Let's get into diet, right? This thing that we know. This thing, but I don't always think I want to do this in a really practical and simple way, okay? And I'm not going to talk about a whole lot of food. Y'all know I be on pork. You know, I'm not even Muslim. I'm just a researcher, and I'm a health nut, right? And so I'll be talking about these things, and I'll talk about it because I care about you. But I'm not going to even talk about your bacon today. Okay, I'm not going to talk about that. I'm not going to talk about, some of your meats and the things that you eat. What I want to talk about is just one major addictive drug that most of us are allowing to ruin our lives because it is laced in our diet in almost everything that we eat, and that is sugar. Sugar. So I'm not going to talk about the parasites in pork, even though I just did. I'm going to talk about sugar. I couldn't help that, y'all. Okay, so sugar, first off, sugar ruins your liver. Now, why is that important? Well, one of the things that we just talked about is what the body does when it sleeps. And so the body is cleaning itself as it sleeps, right? All as it sleeps, the toxins, the waste, all those things are being moved into the digestive tract, into the lower intestine, so that way you can have a bowel movement when you wake up. And the liver is paramount in that function. Now, one of the things I talked about at the beginning of the show is how glucose, the brain needs glucose, right? So let's be clear that not all sugars are bad, right? The good book says be moderate in everything. So not all sugars are bad. The problem is most of us are over-consuming sugar. And so because we're over-consuming it, or we're eating white, refined, bleached sugars, or we're eating high fructose corn syrups. And by the way, let's just real quick. Glucose, the liver can break up, right? So the liver, you eat something that has, glucose in it. Let's just say some bread. Hopefully not white bread, because white bread is composed mostly of white flours and white bleached flour and white bleached sugar, which makes it a very sugary product. And when you eat white bread, let's just say you have toast in the morning and it's white bread toast, and you have jelly on it too. Woof. That gives me a headache just thinking about it. But let's say that's what you do for your breakfast with some coffee and sugar. My head hurting now just thinking about that, right? But if you do that, what happens is there's a glucose explosion, boom, right, in your body. And the liver can process most of that glucose. But in white bread, and you look at the ingredients, but that high fructose corn syrup, it doesn't know what to do with that. So what it does is it turns it right into fat. And that fat often will either sit on the liver or turn into your cellulite. Ever wonder where that stuff comes from? High fructose corn syrup, or fructose overall, okay? And so sugar can ruin the liver because that the liver doesn't know what to do with that stuff, and so it's constantly converting it into fat, right? And that is hard work for the liver. And so that's the first thing that we need to understand about the impact of sugar overall. I just used one form of sugar, white bread. Let me ask a question right quick. And I know my whole audience ain't African American, but boy, I just want to talk to the black folks right now. How black folks so militant throwing down white bread like that? Like, how y'all so militant? I just want to talk to y'all right quick. How you so militant you won't eat brown bread? Like, to me, that's just like, even like, take out, I'm just cracking jokes right now, right? Let's take out any of the health stuff, right? The black militants be like, black everything, black clothes, black beret, black. So why you eating white bread? Black brother, black sister. I'm just saying. Now, for those of us who aren't militant, somebody got mad on here. It's just a little joke. But with reason, right? Because here's the thing. Y'all know it ain't good for you. You know it's not good for you. So why are we doing it? Anyway, sugar ruins the liver. But here's the other thing that sugar does. Sugar negatively affects your ability to learn. Here's why. The glucose hits the brain, powers it up. Boom. Right? Like I said, the prefrontal cortex runs off glucose. But then what happens is there's a significant glucose drop after you consume it. Pop. So then there's a significant glucose drop. So basically what you did is you kind of hit the brain with something real hard, and then it drops right out. So now it's worse off than it was. And you wonder why you can't remember what it is that you need to remember for a test or for an exam. Or just for life, for a meeting. You know, Linal, how can you come on the show and just talk like that and call facts out and call these different things out? Like, well, maybe part of it is my diet. Now, the other things about sugar that we know is that sugar causes weight gain. And I just broke down to you how. Because when you got that fructose in your body, the liver can't process it. It turns it into fat. And then it sends the fat to all the areas in your body where you don't want it. Your stomach, your thighs, your butt, all the areas. You're like, why? Oh, my goodness. Why? You know, it's like, well, it's just a product of what you ate. And then, get this, ladies, that cupcake or that sugar that you just have to have, that chocolate that you just have to have that feels so good because, oh, it's the time of the month and I don't understand and I don't get it. All I'm going to say is that it causes wrinkles. It causes wrinkles. So then if you want to age gracefully, right, this is not even about productivity. Some of it is just about looking good. But the other thing that sugar does is sugar causes stress due to the up and down of the blood sugar. So what's happening now is I eat something high glucose, then it drops because it's sugar, and then it goes back up because I gave the cookie example in the first hour because I need it again, so then it shoots back up. And what's happening is when all that's going on, my body is trying to regulate its hormones, and so I actually stress myself out. I stress my physiological body out when I'm doing those things. And then get this, because I'm stressing myself out, I'm also messing with my emotions. I've said it before, man. I firmly believe there are people out here who are really, truly, clinically depressed. I get that. And they deserve help and they need help and we need to pray for them. But some of us are actually bringing our depression on through our diet. I believe it. So much sugar, the ups and downs, and the up and down, the up and down. And then whenever you're down, you're like, I'm depressed. I don't feel so good. Like, oh, man, that's horrible. And then people are like, mental health. And I'm like, well, maybe it's more than mental health. Maybe it's health. Maybe it's diet. And then in this pandemic world, sugar lowers your immunity. Not to mention that the number one cause for death is heart disease, and sugar is the major reason why people are getting heart disease. Well, Linal, you don't understand. The donuts were there and they were free. That donut is not free. It's costing you. It's costing you. It's not free. It's costing you more than you know. And we got to get to a point where we have the level of clarity and the level of discipline, the level of intention in our lives where we know how to say no to these things. And it's unfortunate, but most of us, we are so addicted to sugar that you could say, I start my diet tomorrow. And if somebody brings free donuts into the office, your diet is done within an hour or two. That addicted. Okay, now, digestion. Let's talk about digestion. So, trying to figure out where to start. All right, so a lot in my mind right now. Let's start with comfort food. Let's start with comfort food. Man, comfort food is delicious. I'll be the first one to say it. And comfort food also makes you sluggish. Ain't no secret. Ain't no secret. Why does it make us sluggish, Linal? It makes you sluggish because most comfort food is high in fat and carbs. And so here's what happens. Here's what happens when this Sunday afternoon, and by the way, it's nothing wrong with it. Who knows? Maybe my wife and I will have some comfort food today. Because, by the way, we actually aim at days where we don't have to have a lot of productivity to eat, like to have our cheat times. And I'm not saying that we can't have fun with food. I'm not saying that. But we do need to have discretion, and we do need to know when to say stop. And so a Saturday or Sunday are days where my wife and I might say, yeah, let's have a little comfort food. Why? Because I don't really lose anything if after I eat that, I go lay down. I don't lose anything. But Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, nah, I'm good. I even told you all I won't eat like that a night before a show because I want to be at my optimal thinking levels. So here's what happens when you eat comfort food every day. There's a hormone. It's called CCK. I call it CCK because I can't pronounce it. It's like cholestostokinin or something like that. Anyway, it's called CCK. If you look up CCK, you can see the whole thing. And what happens is this hormone is released into the small intestines. And so let's just say you eat a slice of pizza, right? And most slices of pizza are high in fat, and it's a high-calorie food. So then the CCK is released into the body. And the reason it's released is because its job is to help the body break down this white flour, like just call it what it is, in the crust, right, and bread and cheese and all these things into some sort of protein and fat. The body wants to make that a protein and fat. Now, let's be clear, not a lot of protein in pizza. So guess what that's going to become? If the body's looking to break things down into protein and fat, it's likely going to be fat. So then there's research that says that there's a relationship between the increase of CCK after eating a high-fat meal and feeling sleepy for the next few hours. Because the release of that hormone actually says, let's pull energy from the brain and from other areas so that way we can digest this high-fat content in the gut, which is why it's difficult to think after having a big meal. So the other thing to consider is that when we eat foods that are known to increase inflammation in the body, right? Like red meat or sugars. By the way, sugars are known to increase inflammation in the body. And so if you have a lot of joint pain, you're aching all the time, is likely because the sugar. I like to call it sugar in the joints. And sugar in the joints don't feel good, right? So what happens is when you're eating these foods that cause high inflammation, the body releases cytokines. And the reason it's releasing these is because these are cells and hormones that help the body's immune system. Because it's like, okay, we got to fight this. We got to fight this. And so all that fighting in the body creates a drop in overall energy. Now, that's one piece, right? So what I eat can drop my energy, especially if it's not good. But here's the thing. This is one of the reasons why breakfast, like certain breakfasts, are the biggest scam. They say breakfast is the most important meal of the day. Depends on what you're eating. Because if you're eating high sugar and inflammatory type of foods, you set your day off on the wrong course already. You're going to be tired. You're going to be tired. And there are other foods like oats and other things that the body can just break down and boom, they become direct energy. But then here's the other piece about how we eat. There are certain hormones that as you eat these rich fat foods, or another way to say it is tryptophan rich foods in large quantities, because the body is releasing these hormones, then it starts to throw our overall hormonal balance out of whack, because it's like you ate all that turkey, chicken, milk, bread, chocolate, tuna, cheese, peanuts, and such. And the body's like, what do I do with this? And by the way, all nuts are not created equal, right? Peanuts are not the same as a walnut or an almond. And so the body's trying to figure out what to do with this. That's why peanuts are so cheap, by the way. And so it produces this these tryptophan rich foods produce these hormones. And so the body's like, man, we got all this stuff in, so we need to relax. And so it starts to release serotonin and melatonin and all these other things. And you like, but do you really want melatonin right after lunch when you got to work? Do you really want serotonin and melatonin in your blood system when you got to work? And then get this. It's even research. Check this out. Some of you all have insomnia. You can't sleep. So when I was going through the first three and I was like sleep, hydration, breathing, you're like, well, Linal, you don't even get it. I can't sleep. Well, the reason you can't sleep is likely because of your diet, because you have a high-fat diet, and that high-fat diet is releasing all your melatonin in the middle of the day. So now it's time to go to sleep, and the body should be naturally producing melatonin to put you to sleep, but you done used it all. So now you up, watching TV, eating sweets. It's a nasty, vicious cycle. I'm not saying you're doing all those things, but man. See, this is the thing, and I don't know why. Again, I told you all the reason I chose to have this segment, and I do hope that you've called your friends and even those of you watching on Facebook that you share this and really help people understand that you can do all you want to do around productivity. You can read all the books. I've read them. Nobody is making this link like this. So they're telling you what kind of planner at the beginning of the year. They're like, get my planner. This planner is going to change your life. And it's like, no, it's not unless you go to sleep. No, it's not unless you drink water. No, it's not unless you change your diet. Most of y'all that bought these planners, the planner is still sitting there empty because you don't even have the energy.
Everything you're talking about, I'm doing it, because I was taking a class for the last 2 weekends and plus trying to work, with my two businesses, and I was drinking a lot of coffee. And then it turned around that it started messing up my stomach. You know, my stomach started saying, you know.
It's high in acid. Yeah, it'll do that.
Yeah.
It's acidic. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
yep.
So what I decided to do with what you're saying, because someone said if you don't drink the coffee on an empty stomach and, like, have food on there, it'll stop the stomach ache, and that did happen. So what I was going to say is that I think we should, like you said, drink the water when you first wake up, no coffee, and then, you know, put something on your stomach and then have the coffee, and don't have like 6 cups like I do a day. So, you know, so that's what I wanted to say.
And Tracy, let me say this to you. Thanks for your vulnerability calling in and just sharing where you are. The other thing too is 6 cups, you may notice high levels of anxiety.
I'm telling you, yeah.
And this is the other thing.
And it does impair your learning, because when I went to the class, she was having us do, because it's a traditional Thai massage class, and so she was having us do yoga, and then doing like a certain pose, and I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
And then the next day, after I got sleep and I didn't drink as much coffee, I could do the pose. And so I could tell that coffee does mess you up. It does mess your stomach up. And like you said, it dehydrates you. And but when you're driving and you're, you know, doing a lot of driving and you're working like hours that are not the hours that people mostly, you know, are up because of my, you know, my cleaning business. And then I'll have someone that, because I have the massage too, so then someone might want a massage at, you know, 5 p.m., and then I'm up at like 2 in the morning. So it's not good. That's why I drink so much coffee. And then, you know, the other thing I've decided to have a lot of is turtles. I don't know. Do you know what turtles are?
Oh, the pecan candy with chocolate and caramel.
Oh, my gosh. Oh, gosh. That's my favorite thing, Linal. So I've been having a lot of that, and so pray for me, Linal.
Well, I'm not going to pray for you. If you're open to some support, I want to just talk to you real quick.
Okay.
So here's the first thing. The first part is awareness, and you see what's happening. Mm-hmm. Like, you experience it. So you experience the acidic effect of coffee. You've experienced how it impacts your mental state, anxiety. The anxiety is caused by the hormonal imbalance that it's causing in your body. And then, of course, the high degree of sugar. You already know, I just walked through what sugar is doing to the body.
Yeah.
And so now you have the awareness. And the first thing you have to decide, Tracy, is why. Why would you shift this? Why would you change? And do you have any idea why you would make a shift?
You're asking me that question?
I'm asking you, yeah. Why would you shift away from these habits right now? And you might be like, you know what, Linal, I'm good. I'm gonna do this until I can't.
Well, the reason why is because I don't want the wrinkles, and I want to live longer, and I just want to be healthier. I'm pretty healthy, but it's just I got these bad habits. But
so stop right there. Stop right there. That's how we fool ourselves. What are you basing your I'm pretty healthy? What are you basing that on?
Let's see.
How you look?
I'm not sick that much, you know. I
want to back you up real quick. Did you hear the show Guarding the Gut with Dr. Prince?
I did.
Okay, do you remember? And I'm pushing you along on purpose. Do you remember where we talked about how the medical industry, when we define sickness, basically most of the time it's saying because you are not sick right now. And I'm going to tell you something with love, Tracy, with love. What I just heard you say, I didn't put it in your mouth. This is what you shared on the air. But you are headed, and I don't want to speak into your life like that, but unless something changes, so I'm actually going to pause and not say it. But you understand what I was about to say, where you're headed?
No, you could go ahead and say it.
No, I don't want to speak into your life that way. I definitely want you to see the consequence, the potential consequence of what it is that you're doing with your diet. Can you see the potential consequence?
I do, yeah.
Can you see that these behaviors are likely cutting years off the back end of your life?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so this is where I'm going to take you. I gave the audience 3 places to look early in the first hour. Sleep, because it might actually make sense for you to turn down $1 to get 7.5 hours of sleep.
Wow. That is something. Because I do a lot of work. I work a lot, so.
Let me tell you what happens. I've seen it.
7.5 hours of sleep?
7.5 hours of sleep minimum.
Yeah.
Minimum. And let me tell you what happens, Tracy. I've seen this happen with too many clients. I've worked with hundreds and hundreds of people. What happens is the body is going to get what it needs. And so right now you've been basically using stimulants and sugars and things like that to build your business. And what happens is you'll get to that point where you're like, okay, I'm ready to turn the curve. And that's when illness will hit and the body will get all the rest it needed.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you don't bring balance right now, everything is going to get thrown out of balance later. That's just how it works. One of the things that we've been doing in a text message is we've been really creating this correlation between health and wealth and how it works. And I want to share this with Tracy real quick. So I'm actually looking to go to one of the quotes that I had over the past couple of weeks on health, because sometimes what we will do is we will put our health on the back burner to gain what we believe is wealth. And I want you all to really hear me on this one. We'll put our health on the back burner to gain what we believe is wealth. And one of the things that we have to understand, and we have to really, really get this, is that your first wealth is your health. And that you never, ever want to do anything that is going to negatively impact your health. There is no sum of money that someone can give me that will, if they say, Linal, if you give me just a quarter of your health, I give you $100 million. No, thank you. No, thank you. My health is my wealth, and a healthy Linal can generate his own $100 million. I firmly believe that. Zig Ziglar said, the man who earns $1 million but destroys his health in the process is not really a success. That's a Zig Ziglar quote. There's another one that we sent out that I want to read real quick. That just based on the conversation that I just had with Tracy here, and here it is right here by JFK. Physical fitness is not only one of the most important keys to a healthy body. It is the basis of a dynamic and creative intellectual activity. Intellectual activity. Here's the thing, real quick. Exercise increases your energy. Exercise reduces fatigue. Exercise improves concentration. Exercise lowers the effects of stress. Exercise improves your mental well-being. Exercise is just something that you want to do. I mean, it really is that simple. Here is very simply, for those of you who think exercise is difficult, this is where you should start. It is proven that 30 minutes of walking a day can get you these benefits. You don't got to go and, be doing backflips or bench pressing 250 pounds and all these things that sometimes we think we have to do to show up powerfully. Some of us, we just need to walk for 30 minutes a day. And if you walk for 30 minutes a day, all these things I just called out, increase in your energy, reduction in fatigue, improvement in concentration, lower effects of stress, improvement in mental well-being and mental health and well-being, and by the way, better sleep will come for you. Will come for you. Here's the thing I want you to remember more than anything. We're talking about today the link between health and productivity. And this is the piece that I really want you to walk away with this morning. I really want you to get, okay? And that is this. Productivity at its very core requires health. It requires that you are healthy. There's no reason to read any more productivity books, folks. First, start here. Now, when you're at optimal health and you're looking to figure out, okay, how do I figure out some to-do tricks and take my business to the next level? Great. That's part 2. Productivity requires health. And health requires discipline. And anyone that is highly productive has discipline. The first discipline is your health. That's the very first discipline. You want to kill the game? You want to make $1 million? You want to go to the next level? You want to take your business to the next level? You want to maximize your day? You want to be as productive as possible? Productivity requires health. It is health that requires discipline. And it is the discipline that you gain in health that will help you take your productivity to the next level once you're healthy. Hey, my inspired peoples. Linal Harris here, certified ontological coach and trainer. I'm so excited that you're watching the channel. By the way, did you know you can catch the show live at 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. every Sunday morning? You can. All you have to do is go to my Facebook stream, Coach Linal Harris, catch the stream live, or you can listen to the radio show via iHeart at WVON 1690 AM. But since you're here, if you love the content, I ask that you share it, like this particular video, and subscribe to the channel. I hope you're having a great day.